Welcome back to An Athlete's Journey. I'm your host, Travis Reed. Today, I have a special guest, somebody I recently met on Instagram, but a person that we missed each other by maybe a year or so in Estonia because I was looking like he played on Colin Cromwell. Probably with my boy Nate Fox because I remember my boy Nate. He played in college after I played in college. So,
Mm-hmm.
but no, but real good person. I was really excited to get him on because he's done what athletes usually don't do, which is write a book. And if you notice what athletes do, what they do is they talk a book and then somebody writes it for them. And if you notice, it's always Scottie Pippen, but written by somebody else, So anybody who writes a book, I give them much props because writing a book is hard. Writing a paper is hard, so writing a book is even harder. So want to let him introduce himself, and then we'll get right into it.
Travis, thank you so much for having me. My name's Kevin Owens. Played pro basketball for about 10 years, give or take, injuries and such. And the founder of the author of Overseas Famous. So pleasure to be here. I'm psyched to get into this. This is fun.
No, definitely, man. Like I said, I appreciate you coming on, Kevin, man. Like I said, I love interviewing athletes like yourself who has the similar journeys like myself, Americans that go over there. We were discussing it obviously off the air earlier, like being an overseas player is basically just a series of 1-year contracts. And really, in some teams, it could be, unless you have equity in the country, could be a game to game kind of thing, to where like you come in, and if you come in, you're a big man like we were. If you come in and getting 6 and 8, in the beginning, on a Thursday, they'll have you on a flight on a Saturday or Sunday, so it was, it's not what you think, folks. Like, I feel like as far as basketball going professional wise, being a professional basketball player is probably the hardest job as far as being a professional athlete.
Oh yeah.
Even with the NBA, they have the guaranteed contracts, where the money's going to come in if they get cut or not, or they get traded or not, or whatever the case is. Now to get to that, obviously it's hard, but like once you get there, even when we get there to overseas, and we could be making 5 to 10,000, it could be with the money. The team could be not wanting to pay you. It could be, you know what I'm saying? It could be a situation where they promise you 10, well, we only got 2, or we only got 5. I've seen that happen in my career, my first year. I saw when Bogota, Colombia, I was promised 8. They was giving me 5, but it was my first year, so I was like, "F it, I'm gonna just take the 5." For these couple of months.
Yeah.
And like I said,
those feathers.
yeah, exactly. So like, I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, I want to start with your journey, but first, before we start, shout out to the Believe Network. If you want to find me, you can find me at Travis W. Reed on Instagram and also Facebook.com. And if you're looking for merch, I started the own little merch thing. Travis Reed, An Athlete's Journey, rocking the shirt for you YouTube people that you will see this. And obviously people listening got that going too. So enough with the sponsor stuff. We're going to get back into you, Kevin. So how did your basketball journey start?
It's crazy. I just tweeted something out because someone talked about, giving up on players too early and how AAU teams, there's like so many cuts and like there's youth sports is so intense right now and how everyone's, fighting to try to win games and like cutting people who have potential. I did not start a varsity basketball game. I didn't start in 8th grade. I was like 8th man in 8th grade. Went to high school. I didn't start a varsity basketball game until my senior year, and at that time, I was like nominated to the McDonald's All-American team. So I felt like I had to pay my dues and I had to kind of get a chip away. But I learned so much during that time. So that was kind of how my journey started. Mine wasn't that instant success. Mine was really grinding away. But I learned so much about who I was. I learned so much about what I can take and how tough you have to be. So I think that was important. It was just a different journey than most people. So I played a little AAU. AAU was like not a huge thing back then, but we played a little bit between my junior and senior year. I definitely got a lot better because of it. But it was crazy because then AAU, like, college coaches weren't going like that. Like now, you're only getting recruited with AAU, but back then, high school, we had a high school summer league in my area, and there was like 30 something Division I basketball players in this area, in that like South Jersey, Philadelphia area. So we had a lot of talent, and we used to play these games, and everyone was there. Like Dan Miller, who ended up going to Maryland, we played, and it was like, I think, Cal Parry was still at UMass, but like John Chaney was there, Krzyzewski was there, Gary Miller was there. It was like crazy, and you're just kind of looking around like, wow, we played them. And that was like the beginning of the year, and I already kind of was getting some recognition, but that put me onto the college radar when I like went against Dan Miller, and I dropped like 28, and he dropped like 25. I remember it was just a battle. So that was kind of how it started. Really going and grinding it out. It was just a different journey. Than I was not good until I was still growing in my body. I was 6'2" when I started high school. And I grew to 6'9" in like a year. So I just I couldn't. I was like couldn't even function. So it took me like into college to really start getting a grip of my body. So like again, like I was young too. I graduated high school when I was 17, so like I was a young kid too, and it just took me a while to kind of get used to it. But when I got it, I was cool. I was good. I got it.
Well, no, I imagine. Look, you go from not even starting to McDonald's All-American, your senior year. Like that's a huge jump,
Yeah.
So, as for myself, I would say California, AAU circuit was different but huge.
Yeah.
In my age bracket, it was Baron Davis, Jason and Jaron Collins. They play in the NBA. Jeff Chapangay. Who else? Shea Cotton, obviously. He was the number.
Yeah.
He was here. Everybody else was kind of like down here trying to catch him. And that was him, like, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade. He was the guy, period. Sports Illustrated, when he was 9th grade, you don't see that, especially back then. Now it's different, but like he was in Sports Illustrated as a 9th grader. Yeah. And so, like I said, it was, guys like that. And then obviously above us was, Toby Bailey, Chris Johnson, Tremaine Folks, Charles O'Bannon, Ed O'Bannon, Tracy Murray, Andre Miller, Keith Van Horn, Austin Crozier. So like all this California talent was, all in like this little funnel, because it was basically 2 leagues. It was the Izzy Washington Slam and Jam League and then the ARC League. And so it was just all these, you only played in those leagues, if you were any good. So, like California was just that we were like a bottleneck, and all these guys was trying to get out of the bottleneck of talent. So
yeah, that's crazy. Just thinking about, I mean, like we had some talent, but we had a lot of Division I, but like I'm thinking, there's like a few, like we had, a few guys who kind of made it on. Like I know Rick Brunson, who's Jalen Brunson's dad. Like I used to work out with him a lot. I used to do a lot of stuff with him. So we had like some of those fringe guys. But it's crazy like how far it's come. And I think, like New Jersey kind of was, it was the AU, I think, was starting to come in New York. I think California sent it to New York, and it trickled down. So by the time I was like in college, everyone was playing AU. But that time I was like, oh shit.
No, of course. Yeah, no, like for us, it was like, it was little leagues. Like I said, when I first started, I was playing on my dad's team. My dad was my coach all the way up to about 7th grade. So, like an AAU team, I played against 2 games, I remember. My first game played AAU, I was 11. We played Shay's team. They were the national champions, of AAU. We were like national champions. We're coming from the club, like we're coming from the city. What do you mean that? Oh, that means they played all around the best teams in this, in the USA, and they won. Like, all right, whatever. So I remember a teammate of mine makes a pass. Shea steals the ball, comes down. This is 11. Boom, dunk it. I mean, not like a rattle dunk, like easy, like boom. Everybody's going crazy. We just like, did he just dunk the basketball?
Like, oh, national champion.
Now I get it. We was like, oh, okay, well, yeah. Okay. We ended up losing about 50, so like, yeah. Yeah, so I remember that game. It was that was a terrible game. We was like, we see there's levels of this.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so like I remember same thing happened. We played ARC when they had Jason and Jaron Collins. So I ended up joining them.
Okay.
Playing AAU with them for a couple of years. And so, yeah, like I said, like it was in order for us to get seen, you had to play with a guy with a name,
Yeah.
You couldn't go without somebody who had some kind of name on your team.
True. Yeah, it's very true.
Were you interested in any of the sports growing up?
So I played, it was crazy. So I was a really good swimmer too. My mom was like a national championship swimmer. She swam at Westchester. They won the national championship. She was, obviously a big part of that. So she had like this drive, and my dad played, minor league baseball. So like I had these parents who were kind of like knew how to teach us how to be athletes and like hone in. So I think I was so good at swimming at such a young age that like I almost gave up basketball. Like I was so good at it. I was like getting, going to join the Junior Olympics, getting like Pan Am Games, things like that were coming to be. So I quit basketball 7th grade, and I like swam full time. Okay. And then it was like one of those things, like this is before Michael Phelps and everything. And I remember like swimming, and then I went to a game at our middle school, and like all the girls were there, and like everyone was cheering. And I'm like, what am I doing? I was like, I'm swimming alone in a pool like a dork. And like all the girls are chasing these dudes. I was like, I need to try this. So I like was like, all right, let me get back into basketball. I, started working at it. I was still swam, but then it just I started really growing, and I really took off with basketball and swimming. I didn't give as much time and effort. Like to swim, like you're swimming like every day, like thousands of laps. And I just didn't want to do that at a young age. So I just kind of like was like, all right, I'm going to stick with basketball. And I'm glad I did. But it was like mainly swimming was like my big thing. Played baseball a little bit. I could throw hard, but like I had no accuracy. So I was like, this isn't for me. And
wild thing.
Yeah. And I was like decent at it, but I did again, like I was like doing so many things at a young age and like swimming so much that like I wasn't putting in time to get better at these things. I'd be like playing wiffle ball and I could do that well, but like when it came down to it, I wasn't working on enough facets of the game, and basketball really stuck out. And that's when I really was like, I think my sophomore year in high school, I kind of said like, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing. And that's when I really started putting the effort. And I mean, sophomore year, junior year, and then my senior year, I like really took off.
Okay.
It was cool.
They said, what am I doing? I'm a dork swimming.
What am I doing? Like there's girls everywhere like that. I remember the big thing, like after the basketball game, I remember I went to the party, and it was like this, all the dudes in the basketball team, like all the girls, like this is like when you went into the closet, like 30 seconds in the closet. I walk in there, I'm just like, this big time swimmer, no one cares. They're all walking. I'm like, this sucks. I'm like, I think I need to play basketball. Like half of my life has been decided by like trying to just get laid. Like the story of my life.
Respect, man, respect. What would you say your most memorable moment in high school was?
So we had like a big rival. It's crazy because I've, 2 brothers, a sister, and me, not one of us went to the same high school. It's just like weird because my sister went, my dad was a guidance counselor at one school. So she went and followed him. She's 6 years older than me. So she went and followed him. My brother went to this other school that was like a prep school, and he went there and I hated it there. I was like, this place sucks. So I didn't want to go there. So I went to the rival school, and then my younger brother was a good soccer player, so he went to like the public school to play soccer. So none of us went to the same school. So when we were playing the team that was like my brother's team, the biggest rival, and he had already graduated. He was in college at the time. But like I remember going, one of the craziest memories, we were playing in the South Jersey Championship. I went up, like caught the ball, and like from far away, like they had 5 Division I guys,
Right.
and we had me. And I went up, caught it, and like dunked on the entire team. We went up by like 10. It was the third quarter. And I just remember the place was so crowded, like people couldn't even sit. And it was a big place. And I remember just running down the court. And that was like that moment where I looked through the crowd and I was like, holy shit, like I can't believe these people are like going crazy. Like all my friends are like tackling each other, just going crazy. The place is erupting. They're booing me. Like I was like that. It was one of those things that I was like, this is the greatest. This is why you play. Like this is why you work so hard. And it was kind of like an eye-opening thing, which helped me through college because I remember looking through and just being like, this is why you do it. Like this is what the
Mm-hmm.
accolades are. This is why you work so hard. This is why you went to all those camps and stuff like that. And it was just a great moment. So I think that was my biggest high school moment, uh, kind of coming to life. We ended up losing the game, by the way. So,
No, okay. I
like I
was like,
said,
oh, all that
five
hype.
5 Division I guys. I was like, and then it's just I think we went up by 10. Fourth quarter, like they just. I mean, they're just so good. It was just drive and kick, and they had a guy buried like 2 threes, and then it was just they were just it was nothing I could do. I'm like trying my best, and just nothing I could do. They were just a talented team.
No, respect. So obviously, you was a McDonald's All American, right?
Yeah, I was like a whatever the
The
nominations.
honorary,
Yeah, I didn't
okay.
go to the game, but I was
Oh, but
nominated.
I
Yeah.
got you. So you have obviously a lot of college offers.
Yes.
What was the college that you chose and why?
So I went to Monmouth University mainly because um, I didn't want to go. It's not like I was afraid. I just didn't want to go like cross country. I was like I said, I was 17 when I graduated high school. Like I was a baby. I like still wasn't mature enough to handle. I remember the first like place they called was USC in California, who was just
Mm.
like, like it was Henry Bibby, and that was the first call I got on the recruiting period when it started. He was the first one. He's like, we want to fly you out, we want you out here, blah blah blah. And I was like, I hung up the phone like terrified, like I don't want to go to California. Like I'm terrified. Like I'm leaving my family. This is all I know. I was a baby. If I like could do it all over again, I would 100% go. But I went to Monmouth because it was close. It was like an hour and 15 minutes away. It gave me the space. And it was an up and coming place. And I also said, like, I knew how hard it was to sit for all that time. So I was like, kids are like 1,000 point scorers in high school. I'm like, great. I was only played my senior year. So when you look through the things at Camden Catholic, I'm not like 1,000 point scorer or anything because I only played really my senior year.
Right.
So I wanted to go somewhere where I could really leave my mark. And I went to Monmouth because I said, I want to be 1,000 point scorer. I want to be the top rebounder, the top guy blocking shots. I want to do this. And that's why I went. And that's what ended up happening. So I ended up, scoring 1,000 there, one of the top rebounders in school history. And that's what I wanted. I wanted a place where I go and I'm not just another name. Like I'm not just another,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, here it is. It's like when I walk in, not that like my ego needs that. Who knows? Maybe it does,
You
but
no, well, no,
like I don't know.
you want to be. Yeah, I get it. Instead of just being another of another of another of another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wanted to
I
be
can.
the man.
Yeah, no, I respect. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you remember most about your first year in college?
First year in college was just me developing. I never lifted weights before. I mean, I was like 195 pounds and I was like 6'10". So I was a skinny dude. I like was still growing in my body. So I remember that was like the biggest eye opener. We used to lift like 3 or 4 days a week. And I remember just like not even knowing how to lift. Like the coach, the strength coach, like looking at me like, "Are you kidding me? What are you doing?" And I'm like I was like, "I have no idea. I've never done this before." So that was one of those things I remember most about freshman year, is just trying to like figure out how to do these things. Like basketball, I got that. Like when I walked on the court, I was good. It was all the off the court, like even studying. Like I was taught like, school's so important. Like I had the grades. I was like always like, don't worry about, school I got, basketball I got, I can do both. It was that extra stuff, just the things that I was not used to, like the stretching and the lifting and all these things that I had to learn how to do. And that was like I remember going through and just like figuring out a routine, going to breakfast, then eating, then or going to breakfast, then lifting, then eating after I lifted so I can put on weight. I was like, never did that before. I just lived my life like a skinny dork.
Nah, I respect that. What was the hardest thing from college, from high school? Like, it's the biggest,
I
hardest thing.
think hardest, I think that was obviously the talent was much more. I think, in high school, I was able to, we played a very talented kids, but like, you didn't really have too many 6'10" or 7-footer guys. And like, if you did, they were kind of skinny,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
would be able to
yeah.
like, you just kind of be able to do things, and I'd be able to go around them and score. Once I'm playing against like a 6'10" guy who's jacked, I was like, that's when I had to kind of reinvent. I was like, all right, so I had to just really be smart. And I think that's where I learned to just outsmart my opponents. I was just like, okay, I could go here, but the dude's going to just pick me up and throw me over here. So I might as well just like spin off him, go here, like do a lot of fakes. So I used to watch, it was crazy. I used to watch like these weird videos that I had when in like the 80s. And I used to watch them like things on Kevin McHale and things on Hakeem Olajuwon. And I just started watching those things and just seeing how he moved and seeing how they did this and like seeing how they got themselves open. And that's what I used in college. So I think that was like the craziest thing, is like having to figure out how to go against a big, strong guy who's also my size. Because, you in high school, you sometimes you get those like 6'3" guys, 6'4" guys, but they're just football players and they're just out there like a big muscle. So I would just
Yeah.
be able to like shoot over them or something like that, because they just want to shove me around. But I could I could do things over them, like 6'10" and that muscle. I'm like, nope, gotta figure this one out.
No, I agree with you on that. That's what people will like ask me, like, as far as my game, I'll be like, like a quick hook shot or whatever. So they were like, I was going against guys who was 6'11" who could jump out the gym. So I had
Yep.
to like kind of get them off balance, throw it up fast, you know what I'm saying? What would you say was your biggest triumph in college was?
We went to the NCAA tournament. That was, I mean, my sophomore year, that first time, it was incredible. That's what I remember the most, because when I got there, we were 10-14, I think. The year before we were 4-23, and then like 5-21 the year before that. So it was there was like work to do. So we kind of went 10-12 or 10-14, and I was like, all right, we're close, like we're right there.
Right.
And then we went to Europe on one of those European tours. We did really well out there. We really bonded. We came back the next year, and we ended up going to the NCAA tournament, and we played Duke, who was the #1 seed. Because obviously we were a 16 seed, we're a small conference, but that was one of the more surreal moments, just going against a team like Duke. You got Shane. They won the national championship that year. It's like Battier, Jay Williams, Dunleavy. Like, so that was a really fun experience just to even see it. Like, I remember that was like the time when I realized it the most. Like, you're playing against big, strong guys, and they're in your conference, and everyone in Division I is obviously a tremendous athlete. But I remember going out to guard Dunleavy, and he like gave me a hesitation step and pulled up and hit a three so quick that I was like, what the fuck? Like, what just happened? It was like, it boggled my mind. And that was when you're kind of like, wow, like this is why he's Duke. Like, this is what it is. And again, everything I've always took, like I've always taken bits and pieces and been like, all right, take that and put it in your heart and like understand what he did to do that. Like what was his work ethic? Like, so that's pretty much my journey. Like every time I got my ass kicked, I would say, why did you get your ass kicked? Like figure out how to make yourself better, like figure out why they did this and then try to improve on that. So I was always with an open mindset to be like, all right, he just killed you. Like, don't sit there and sulk about it. Like, figure out why he killed you and try to, emulate that so you can be a better player.
Okay. That actually makes a lot of sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, what would you say your biggest lesson that you learned in college was?
Don't be late. That was a big one. We had college there it was strict. Like, don't be late for class, don't be late for anything. We like that year that we ended up going to the tournament before that, like guys would come late and stuff because they were four and like 4 wins, 5 wins, like the mindset kind of was like, all right, we suck. So they would come late for to never really to practice or anything, but they would show up late to class or something. They'd be like, whatever, it's class. And we used to have to get up at 6 in the morning and run this like ridiculous sprint gauntlet that would kill us. And we did it like 20 times that off season because guys kept on coming in late, and you started learning like, do not be late, and you're holding your teammates accountable. So I think leadership, you can be a strong leader even if you're young, and don't be late. I remember those were like the two things that I took with me, and I'm like rarely late since. I mean, obviously there's extenuating circumstances. That's why I added the rarely. But like, if I could be there, if like I'm gonna leave myself time, but traffic and stuff like that, there's always something. But I've like vowed to like not be late to things moving forward because I was like, that was the big thing in college. I'm like, I'm not running. Even I'm like an adult going to my daughter's practice. I'm like, I'm not running.
No, I got you. So you play your 4 years at Mammoth. You go to the tournament, so you leave on a high note. What was your basketball journey at now? Was it possible NBA, or was it just strictly overseas from the jump?
It was honestly like I had made a name for myself, and I thought there's chances. I was kind of, my agent was like, all right, the G League is interested. Was the D League back then? And he's like, they're interested. I didn't get into a camp that year. I didn't, do the combine thing. I just went after I graduated, and my agent's like, "Do you want to play?" He's like, "Because they're interested, but you have to kind of show some more stuff." So I went to an exposure camp, and did really well in there. Ended up that exposure camp kind of jump started. I then got drafted in the D League, but I got drafted in the 8th round, I think, 7th or 8th round. So like in the D League, like at that time you only had 10 guys in the roster, and they already had like 5 that they were bringing back. So they drafted like those first 5 picks, like those are our guys. I think they had 6 coming back, so there's like 4 spots and all of these like 8 rounds of draft picks. So I was like picked with like no chance of making it, and it was that same thing. Like I just went there and I was like, I'm just gonna grind it out and try to do my best. I'm gonna give everything I got, and kept going, did well. I think I was on the cusp, and then we played Maryland. It was like one of those weird G League and NCAA teams because we were like considered, we weren't like the Spurs or anything. So we played the Maryland at College Park, and I like dominated. I like dunking on people, played really well. I remember the crowd was talking all kinds of stuff to me, and it like almost pissed me off. So I was like, all right, I got this. So I remember going there, and after that Maryland game, I'm like, wow, like this is it. Like I think I did it, and then I made the team, and by doing that, that propelled me, to the first year, same thing, playing not all the time, but playing every game, but like not getting a ton of minutes. So the second year ended up going to Poland. Same kind of situation. Like I was in Poland, and I was there for like a month and a half or so, 2 months maybe. And it was me and this guy, Albert Mooring, who went to Georgetown, and we were doing well. And like, everything was good. And they like came in the one day, they're like, yeah, we have to let you go. And we were like, what? Like, why? And they like the guy like walked out. I was like, okay. So they gave us some money. We were like behind on getting paid. So he gave us a few, like some money, not nearly what they owed us. And then I kind of talked to my agent, and he's like, I think they ran out of money. I was like, awesome. So
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, so that was my first experience overseas. So I went back to the D League after that because I was like, screw this. And then I went back to where I'm familiar, and I had a great second year. And then that's kind of like where, things started taking off because my success in the D League. So everything just like starts with me just, barely making it, and then, just keep grinding it out.
Funny story. I had the same similar thing that happened to me in Poland. My first year, I came back from Bogota, Colombia, signed a
Uh,
deal. I was over there for the summer. Signed a deal to go to Poland. I was there for like 3 weeks, and they didn't pay me or the other American, and they just released me. They said, "We'll give you a ticket back home." We was like, "Yeah, you'll give us a ticket back home. What about some money?"
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, Poland was an interesting place.
Uh-huh. There's just some of those places in over there. Like someone was telling me, like these days it's Germany, and Germany, France, and Spain are pretty much sure things. Like if Australia too. Like if you
Oh
go
yeah, yeah,
there,
yeah.
like they're gonna pay you. Like there's no issue. But like Europe wise, they're like Germany, France, Spain. Like you go there, you're gonna get paid. Everywhere
Mm-hmm.
else is kind of like fingers crossed. Let's hope
Well,
so.
no. Holland is cool because they don't have a lot of money,
Yeah.
So like they can afford to pay a guy $3,500 or $4,000 because they don't have a lot of money,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's easy, So, but like if a guy make $10,000, like,
We'll see.
yeah, we'll see, right? Yeah, exactly. All right, so you finished. You go back. You leave Poland, go back to the D League.
Hmm.
What happens after that?
So I go to the D League. It's my second year. Have a great showing. Kind of like have a workout. In the door with like the Bobcats that were the Hornets at the time. Really had
Mm-hmm.
a good showing.
Mm-hmm.
End up going through that whole gauntlet. Don't end up making the team, and I'm like, it was kind of like that same thing. I was like, should I try this again? So I went. I was like, I'm so close. Like I'm so close to the NBA. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go. So I went back to the D League for the third year, and it was like crazy because I was like, I went to Poland. I was like, I'm so close. Like I can feel it. So I went back there. Like that's kind of what my agent advised. He's like, they want you back, where they're close, they're affiliated with you, they can pull you up at any time. I was like, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So there's three teams affiliated with us, who were the Roanoke Dazzle. It was the Sixers, the Bobcats, and the Wizards. Obviously, that year, Andre Bloch, who was like
Yeah, yeah,
he was
yeah.
their big ticket guy.
Yep.
He
I remember Andre.
he got carjacked and shot.
Oh
So
wow.
he's like recovering. So they're like, all right, he's not ready. He's been out for like a year. So they sent him down. So I'm like, okay, he kind of plays my position. They also send this rookie PJ Ramos down. So they sent two guys down that last year who played my position, and like my minutes were kind of like, whoa. So I was like, all right, there was an opportunity to leave. And it was crazy. There was an opportunity to leave and go. I think it was in Sweden. There's a team who's like, listen, Sweden's going to pay you a real good amount of money. Just like, let's go. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, all right. So I kind of like almost agreed in principle. And we went to this like exposure thing. Like it was like the D League exposure day, like scout day, where all the scouts of the NBA watched. We're all in one place and we all played in front of them. And I like killed it. So my agent was like, "Hold up." He's like, "You might be." He's like, "You're going to be getting a call up. Like, you're really close." And it was like the same set of circumstances. Like some guy got hurt who was a guard,
And he
and
cut.
they picked up a guard instead. And I was like, Shh. So it was like every little bit bad piece of luck. So after that, I was like, whatever. I finished out the season, and then the following year was when I was like, I told him I was like, find something overseas. I was like, I'm not going back to the D League. So he ended up calling me in July and was like, hey, there's a team in Australia, the Cairns Taipans, who Want you to come over. I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
I was like, sounds good. I'm in. Let's go. Fly me over.
Oh, well, I mean, like I said, that's really funny. And like that D League story was one of those familiar situations where like my boy played in the D League the year before me, and he had told me
Okay.
about it. Yeah, and he was like, "Yeah, man, I was in, New Mexico in a 2-bedroom apartment with 5
Uh-huh.
of us, making 2,500." You know what I'm saying? Because obviously
Yeah.
D League guys wasn't making that money at the
No,
time, and so
nothing.
like I was like, "Oh God, it was 5 of y'all in a 2-bedroom apartment."
Hmm.
And 2 to a room. I'm like, that's worse than college.
It's terrible. And there you really weren't making anything. Like that was the crazy thing. Cause I feel like that was the like you made some money, like the league kind of it's like, but you didn't make like any money in the D League. So I was sitting there in the D League, like making nothing. So I was going home being like this close to having an NBA contract. And like my friends are like, buy us drinks. I'm like, with what? Like I'm living in my mom's like attic. Like I don't have any money. I don't have any place to go. I remember just being like, this is crazy. And that's when I called my agent. I was like, find something that pays. Like I'm not doing this again. And that's when Australia came
No,
knocking, and
man, that makes sense,
it
man. Because like, yeah, like you know, everybody traces the dream, and I respect that. You know what I'm saying?
yep.
If you get a chance, an opportunity to do it, but I was like, when I thought about because I was going to enter my name in the D League draft,
Uh-huh.
whatever, and I was like, nah. And then Poland gave me an offer. Poland like will offer you $8,000. $8,000,
Yep.
my first contract. I'm like,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? Then after that, it was just overseas, overseas, overseas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So it's okay. So you finally go to Australia. How long do you play in Australia for?
So I'm in Australia for a year and I loved it. Like loved every second. I was like, I'm going to continue playing here.
Mm-hmm.
So you're making good money. It's like it was like nine, I think, a month in Australia. I was living in paradise. Like Cairns was like paradise. Like you're on the Great Barrier Reef, you're on the beach. You're like you could go for a day at the beach. Although the beach is like different. Like you're in California, like I go to the Jersey Shore and like, you go in the water, it's like dirty, but there's nothing really that's gonna get you. Like Australia, there was like a section you could swim that's like 10 by 10. And then if you walked out of there's like 30 things that's gonna kill you. So you're like, all right, just stay here. You're like splashing water up on you. So I was like, it was really cool though. Like we went out in the Great Barrier. It was like incredible. It was paradise. I loved every second. So killed it there, did really well, was made the NBL All-Star game, really had a good year. There's a guy, Nathan Jawai, who ended up playing with the Timberwolves. He was
Mm.
coming up. He was a young guy. So he was their like development player, and he was like like baby Shaq. He was like 7'1", like a huge guy. And
Oh yeah, I think I
yeah,
remember him. Yeah, yeah.
uh-huh.
Super athletic. Yeah,
Super athletic, like
yeah.
really athletic, but like big, like looked like Shaq. So
Yeah, I remember him. I remember him.
uh-huh. He
Yeah.
was coming up for like in our youth system for Cairns. So Cairns was like, we're not going to re-sign you because we have him coming. But they're like, there's like countless offers coming in from Australia. So there was like 4 other teams that wanted me. And I was like trying to figure out where I wanted to go. I was like, okay, I could go to, the Breakers in New Zealand,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there was like a Townsville, and I think there was like the South Dragons. I was like, man, I could, there's some places I can go here, but I was like pissed about Cairns, and I was like, Townsville's close, maybe they'll do that. So I kind of was like went home and like was thinking about the different things, and there was a camp for like South Korea, and they pay 25,000 a month. So I was like, all right, I'll go out there. Went out to Vegas, ended up doing well in the camp. Same thing, go to end up in South Korea. And I was like, all right, so I canceled all the contracts. I was like, I'm going to South Korea. So I went to South Korea, and that's where I like destroyed my knee. And that's a crazy
Mm.
story because I'm there, and they like refuse to admit that I like hurt my knee. Like I couldn't even walk, and they're like, sorry, you have to play. I was like, I can't play, like I can't walk. So the trainers were like messing with the wrong knee. They're like, see, it's fine. I'm like, that's the wrong knee. Like there was some shady stuff.
Okay.
So in my contract, it said if I'm hurt, if I'm like hurt, you got to pay me out. So they knew that. So they were like, nope, we're not paying, we're not going to pay out because that's a lot of money. And so they're like, you have to play. So I was like, I'll do my best. So I honestly had like tore up my knee, and I played with like this weird knee brace, and I played like a few games with it, and I was, it's terrible. Like I was really good in the beginning, and then I was like terrible. Like I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything. I'm like hobbling around the court, and I was like, there was just nothing I could do. So we end up losing. They bring me in after the game, and they're like, "Listen, we're releasing you." I was like, "Oh, thank God! Like this is great." I'm like, you're gonna have to pay me my money. Like I get to leave and get my knee taken care of and get paid. And they're like, "No, we're not paying you." I was like, "All right." So I had to
Oh.
negotiate and figure out. And then finally, he's like, "All right." Like I'm talking to the translator. Everything's through a translator. So I'm talking to him. I'm like, "All right." So he's like, "Go home." I said, I was like, "I'm not leaving until you figure out my knee situation." He's like, "Okay." So finally, they're like, "Go home." They made me sign this piece of paper. They're like, "Go home, get your knee looked at." And I wrote on the piece of paper, like, "I need, this is the agreement," and blah, blah, blah. They're like, "Go home." I went home, got an MRI. They're like, "Your knee's fucked." Sorry if I'm sorry for cursing.
No,
They're
no,
like,
it's
"Your
no
knee's
problem.
screwed."
Hey, it is what it is.
So like, your knee's screwed up. Like you need to get this fixed. So I got it, had to rehab, do all this stuff with it for a while. I was out for like 4 months. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
kind of came back, and like after that, I wrote them and I was like, "All right, this is what it is. This is the injury." They're like, "Who? Like, do we know you?" And like never saw any of that money. And
Wow.
we tried to fight it in Korean court, but like the guy who represented, he's like, "Just so you know, like they're not going to side with you." He's like, "It's a really corrupt system, so there's nothing you can do. Like you're legitimately, like they have people all over." I was like, "This is ridiculous." So I never knew that existed, and I should have, because there was a dude, Corey Underwood, played with the Bulls for a while. He was there in the meeting when we all first got over there. All the Americans got over there, and they brought us into a meeting. And Corey was like, "Yo, I hurt my knee, and no one's fixing it." And he like, they were trying to talk to all of us, and he like refused to let him talk. He's like, "I hurt my knee. Someone needs to do anything." So they pulled him aside and I guess straightened it out. That's what I probably needed to do. Like I needed to make a scene, and I didn't, because I was like, that's not my personality. So I just was kind of like, "All right, you guys will fix it. I trust you."
Dang,
Not the case.
that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, how was South Korea like the place?
It's I was just talking about this the other day. I was like, there's so many places that we played at, and I remember all these different places. I remember going here. I remember touring South Korea. I didn't have a car, and we were on a compound. So like to get into the compound, it was like a barbed wire fence, and then the other one was like one of these. So we couldn't really leave. Like they didn't let us leave. They didn't let us. There was like a military base close by. I did saw like very little of South Korea. Like I saw the arena, and like they gave us an apartment, but we were only there from, like, they would drop us off after the second practice, which was like 7 o'clock at night, and
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
they would pick us up at like 8 in the morning. So I was there pretty much to sleep. So I saw like very, very little of South Korea. I wish I saw more because I heard it's beautiful.
Right.
I just didn't see it all because we were just in this little tiny town and just back and forth. So that's like, that sucked. And it's funny because I know other guys who played in South Korea and they loved it, but the team that I was on was like notorious for this. Mobus Fetus, like they were notorious. Like they didn't let players go, they didn't let players out, and other teams were like, "Cool, live your life." So I was like, "Shit, just the wrong team."
No, I get it. I get it. So after Korea, so how long was your overseas, because I'm trying to get to the part of Estonia.
Oh yeah, so it's like I was recovering from my knee. I then went to New Zealand and played in like the league in New Zealand for a few months. Um, which is like the off season for the NBL. So I played in the New Zealand basketball league for a few months. Loved
Hmm.
that. Played with like guys, a guy who I played against in the American, Nick Horvath. Ended up playing with him. We had a great time. Like it was just a great experience. I love New
Hmm.
Zealand. I had
Hmm.
a great time. Uh, kind of the same thing. Like I didn't rehab enough. I was so anxious to go back that I was like, I'm good, because after I got hurt from Korea, like there was like 10 offers on the table from Australia, like come back, and I'm like, I can't. Like I told my doctor, he's like, you are not going anywhere. So I was like, he's like, you have to do this. You're gonna need this. You have to rehab. So I was like, all right. So I did that. Went back to New Zealand, and I went back too soon. My knee was like not healed. I kept on messing it up. Um, then after that, like I was out for like like kind of like that long
Yeah,
period, probably
yeah,
like a
yeah.
yearish, trying to recover. Finally got it like back, but I had done so much damage to it. So I went to Kosovo, and I was there for a while. We won a championship. That was fun. But it was like the same thing. I was almost working myself back into shape,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it
I know
was it
exactly
was
how
like
you feel.
I've been out for a year, so I was like, man, I'm rusty. I like don't really know. So I was like kind of working myself back in shape. I felt pretty good towards the end of the season. Then we win the championship, the season ends, and uh it's like kind of the same thing. And like you could tell I wasn't the same. So I was like kept kind of like hobbling along. So it's like I was out trying to like rehab it, do it again for a while, and then it was around Christmas, like that holiday break, that I got a call. And they're like, are you, like, my agent's like, how's, I know your knee is not great. He's like, how are you? He's like, do you want to go to Estonia? And at this time I'd been writing. So he's like, do you want to go to Estonia? I was like, hell yeah. Like, that looks awesome. Like, I love snow. Like, I wanted to, like, this is cool. Like, I always wanted to kind of go to that area. So I headed up and went to Kyle Cramo. And that was like, it was a surreal experience. Like, that was crazy. Like, we flew into Finland. I get off the plane, looking around, there's like moose in the airport. I'm like, cool, this is awesome. And then we fly over like the whatever the Gulf of Finland or whatever, the separation, and we fly over and it's like frozen solid. I'm like, holy shit, like this is crazy. Like
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
not,
It
yeah.
gets real cold. It gets real cold in sun. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I would definitely. I remember my son's mother came and she flew to Estonia when it was like during the winter time, like December, and it was like -10. She was like, "Oh my God," like being from California, you see the sun, like people can't see it right now, but I'm in the sun right now, and yeah, like Estonia, it was like -10, and I would come
Yeah.
with like a face mask and all that, and my
Hmm.
teammates be like, "Dude, it's not that cold." I'm like, "Dude, I'm from California. -5 is cold." So yeah, no, Estonia was great place, great place.
Oh, I loved it. And it's like the crazy thing, because, we would go to practice, and then you go out, like, or like go all out of practice. So you're sweating, you're drenched. And then it's like, you're not showering there. You're going back to the like apartment to shower. So I would be like layers after I like
Yeah,
hit those,
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
dry
yeah,
myself
yeah.
off and then like start layering up and getting back in. And I'm like, my clothes are like, I'm sweating here, but then like the fourth layer is like ice on it. You're like, this is a weird thing that's going on right now in my body. Like,
Yeah,
I don't really
yeah,
understand. My
yeah.
clothes are so confused right now.
No, that's why I had to take a shower there because I would be all drenched of sweat. And
Yep.
so, like, I would just hurry up and get a shower. Okay. Because the shower would be like warm. It wouldn't be cold,
Yeah.
hot, but it'd be warm. And so
Yeah.
then I would like, okay, wrap some towels around me, then start layering up my one pair of sweats, then another pair of sweats, then socks, and then shoes, jacket, then their jacket. Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh. Yep.
yeah,
The
yeah,
team jet.
yeah.
And I remember like getting into the car. That was the crazy thing, is like I would go in and sit in the car, and like my head was, everything was still sweaty. So like the heat was still pumping out of my body. So the car gets all fogged up. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
so I'm
yeah.
like trying to wipe it and going, and it's freezing outside, and every little science that's going on all over the place. And then I get back to the house, and it would be, like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. I'd go back in, eat dinner and stuff, and I would come out the next morning. There's always snow. Like every day it snowed.
Yeah. Yeah,
So I'd
yeah,
wipe the
yeah.
snow off, and then I'd get in, and the condensation from me sweating was like frozen inside the car. So I was like, damn. So I remember like having to go and like chip the ice away from the inside of the car. I'm like, this is wild. I was like, this is something, this is unprecedented right now.
No,
Like,
no,
this doesn't
definitely,
happen.
definitely. Did y'all win the championship that year?
No, we lost in the final, I think.
Yeah, the Tartu, right?
Yeah.
Tartu Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's always only one or the other that wins every year.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
yeah, yeah.
always gonna so yeah, we ended up losing to them. We had a guy, Sharon Fisher, and then Josh Akindong, who ended up playing like in the NBA for a while. There's like a nice little team. We just like it was we just our coach was good, but like I felt like we were just not a team. Like we were just kind of everyone. The Americans were kind of like trying to get themselves to their next job, and it wasn't like that team where you can just kind of take over. Like and Rock had that team. Like they all their guys were like boom, 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 pass and go, and they just getting open shots. I remember like we were going like 3-on-5 like all the time. I'm like, we need to do a better job. So,
Right. So like we discussed earlier, Estonia is your last job, right?
yep,
And that
last
was
stop.
based your 10-year career.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was your next journey after you finished?
So that was the wild part is like I always think like that now what? Like you think as an athlete that there's going to be a billion people
Mm-hmm.
like knocking down your door for jobs that you can do whatever you want. And I remember I got done and the first thing I wanted to do was I was like, I'm going to go back to chiropractic school. And then I was like, it's like a 2-year, 3-year degree, but I'm going to do that. So I remember looking and like, I don't know why I like that's what I had in my head, but I bought a house in South Jersey. I was like, am I really
Mm-hmm.
going to move to Atlanta right now? Like uproot us again and move to Atlanta? So I was kind of like, all right, you know what? There's nothing really close. I was like, let me just put that on hold. I got into teaching because I went to coach and started teaching. And then, that's when you kind of realize like when you're done, like no one's really looking out for you. Your agents kind of like see you. Like it was great to meet you. Like this is awesome. But like now I have
On to
17
the next
clients.
thing. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So so like that's when my writing career kind of took off because I'd written for Slam and stuff like that, and I started writing then about like what life is like as a transitioning into like life outside of basketball. So I started writing blogs about that, and that was fun, and did that for a while. Started telling my stories. I like got picked up by we had like one article that got picked up by like everyone at ESPN. It was on like the front page of ESPN, and that's when I was like, all right, I think I can do something with this. And I remember talking to my brother, and he's like, listen, he's like, you have these stories. He's like, your career was like that crazy thing where like you were a lightning rod, like everything crazy that could happen overseas, not being paid, getting released without being paid, getting injured overseas, winning a championship, like all of these things happen to you, and that doesn't really happen all that. It's like everything happened. So he's like, you need to write these down. So I started, jotting some stuff down, and like piece by piece, I just kind of put it all together. And like I was saying, like I got to the point where I was like, okay, I think I have like 4 chapters. And now I'm like, all right, let me see if I can add a little more. So I added a little more. And then it was like 8 chapters, and I was like, all right, I have something. Like, let's push this through. And I used to there's a guy, Paul Shirley. He kind of wrote a book, same kind of premise, like played overseas and stuff. He had written a book. So I would like followed him on social media. And I remember he put something out. He's like, start doing speed rounds. He's like, start doing these like speed rounds where take 50 minutes and block it out. Like, do not let anyone in. Like, take that 50 minutes and block it out. So I would do that. And I started like using those 50 minutes and like banging out like a ton of writing. And I would just start going. And I just started setting those up like 2 a day, sometimes 1 a day. And by the end of it, all of a sudden I had like 14 chapters, and I had started organizing it, getting an editor involved, and soon enough, like you have the book, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
crazy that when you look back and you're like, all these stories are like so weird and wild, but like you were saying, like we live a life that is so unique.
Mm-hmm.
Or lived. I mean, we lived a life that was so unique. There was so many odd things. It was so difficult. It was so hard, but it was so freaking awesome. It was just, it is the gauntlet of emotions being a pro basketball player, especially overseas. You are sad, you're happy, your ego's on fire. You know, you're walking around a club and everyone's like chasing you, and you know, you can like legitimately be like, you come with me, like you live this crazy life. And then there's like the crazy lows, and I'm like, man, this is a wild experience. And you know, the NBA, I think there, it's so well known and you have this life, but like the lows aren't that low in the NBA. Like overseas, the lows are low. Like you're getting buried sometimes and you're getting cut, and you have to deal with that like on the regular. And I think that's just what makes us like stronger human beings. And that's why I always say, like, if you're hiring someone like an overseas athlete, I take an overseas athlete before an NBA guy anytime. If I'm looking for, like, if I'm my business, I'm trying to bring people in and be like, I want to hire this person. I'm hiring an overseas person before I hire the NBA, because I just look at that and be like, they've persevered so much more.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
can
yeah.
handle so much more. And that's,
Agreed.
I believe in that. I think it's just, you know, we're a different breed.
No, no, 100%, 100%. I agree with you. Like I said, like my story is kind of similar to yours in the same fact that, you know, I got hurt, had surgery, you know, had multiple surgeries, you know,
Uh-huh.
in Europe. Um, you know, I had to pay for my surgery because the team wouldn't want to pay me. They didn't want to pay
Mm-hmm.
for my surgery unless I played in the finals and
Yep.
like take cortisone shots or whatever in my leg. And I'm just like, I'm not doing that. You know, they was like, well, we're not gonna pay for your surgery. So I had to pay for my own surgery, you know, like $30,000 or whatever it was, you know, myself at the time. And like, just like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Well,
Um,
it's
yeah,
crazy.
it's
I feel like the villain of Varsity Blues, like having the villain of Varsity Blues, where like the coach is injecting his knee, is like just like the normal overseas
that's
trainer
I
or
mean, look, and
coach. Like,
that's just normal. Like I've had so
yeah,
many teammates, you know, like I used to watch my teammates, you know, inject his knee or drain his knee. I'm like, you ain't supposed to drain your knee before a game. You know what I'm saying? They would, you know, his knee be like a golf ball, and like they would drain it, and then he would, you know, like
all
whatever,
better.
inject it, and all right, let's go. You know, and it's like, did you just drain that fluid out of your knee? You know, so like, so yeah, you know, it was just insane, you know, like winning championships, losing in the first round, going to championships, all that. So it's a wonderful, like you said, crazy life.
Hmm.
And obviously, you know, after you knew that you was hanging up and you already had a next thing, you know what I'm saying, as far as the next chapter, which is big. You know, a lot of us don't have that, you know.
It's tough. I mean, that's like, so when I started Overseas Famous, when I wrote the book, and then I started our company,
Mm-hmm.
um, that was because that's what I do now. Like now, our my whole entire life is devoted to trying to find, you know, build a network and find things for these athletes once they retire. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Overseas Famous, we're like sports consulting, and we're trying to bring these guys home and be like, all right, let's build your network, let's build your brand, let's do all these things so you can be more successful. Because I know it's like you said, it's tough. Like when you walk away from this sport, I mean, there's nothing really, no one's knocking down your door.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that big name because you've been gone for so long. Like you've
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
disappeared off of everyone's radar, and
Yep.
now you kind of have to relaunch yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
crazy and it's hard to do, and it's difficult if there's no one helping you. So I always, you know, that's what we've been trying, you know, building is like this network of, you know, business owners and things like that. So we were just talking, I was just talking to a girl in Milwaukee who's one of our clients, and she's, you know, she comes home, and I was like, let's, you know, I have this Facebook group that I've created, that I've joined with all these business leaders in all these different cities. And like Milwaukee, I'm like, let's hit this up here. There's a business meeting, you have to, you know, go to this meet and greet and stuff. She goes, she gets a job like right away. I'm like, damn, this is crazy. Like how, you know, it's awesome, and it works because people want to hear the stories. Like you walk into a room, our height our like our charm, like we have these stories. People want to know what we're doing and people want to talk to us. So when we come into a room, we are immediately the focal point. So having that person be like, run to you and be like, listen, this is cool. Now you have something to offer them, and they're like, yeah, like let's go. Like you've done crazy things and you want to get into this field, let's do it. So I think, being an overseas athlete, there's definitely something there. There's something, a draw that we have that's unique to human beings, I think.
No, agreed. What would be your best advice for the next generation of, Kevin Owens?
I think it's never too late, I think, is a big one. I always say it's tough because this world we live in right now, like if you're not a star by the time you're a junior in high school or you're a senior, like a sophomore in high school, it's like your ship has sailed. And it's it's wild to think that that's the case when there's so much more to give. I also think, do don't focus. I always, and I don't, I could be completely wrong with this. This is just a philosophy. Like I always said, don't focus on one thing too early. And my daughter right now, she loves basketball, but she's like, and she likes soccer, but like we'll go to soccer practice and she's annoyed. We go to basketball. We do anything basketball. She's like, let's go. Has her ball. She has her shoes on. She's ready to go. I'm like, Liv, you have soccer practice tonight. And she's like, oh, because she doesn't love soccer. But I'm like, I don't really care. Like this, you're not just playing basketball all the time. Like play something else because you're going to get burned down on it. And I don't want her to burn out on it. And like you see, especially females, I mean, Ella Deladon, like Elena Deladon, like when it's so pushed into being this success, they just forget, why it was fun in the first place. So I think my advice would just be, enjoy your high school years, play different things, but grind your ass off and keep working, and good things will come. Don't just stop because you're not playing at a certain time. Don't transfer when things get difficult. Just stick it out and be like, listen, I can do this. You got this. Accept and embrace that challenge. That's always a good thing.
No, definitely. What would you say, obviously, of your experience, what would you say the best thing it was about you being overseas?
Honestly, I hated traveling. I hated flying. That was like, it was crazy. Like I'd never loved traveling and flying, and I love it now. And I think that was something, you're not just going. I remember in the D League, I hated traveling because we're on the bus, and even when we flew, we're like staying at Holiday Inns, and even if you're staying in a nice city, it's like still America. But being able to leave and see all that this world has, and travel and be on all of these different continents and all these different cities and all these different cultures, and embracing and experiencing those cultures, it like gives you a different mindset than people who've never left. Like we're living in a crazy time now. A lot of people who are angry and yelling and like talking about this and talking about like that and yelling about politics and stuff like that, half of them haven't, like 90% of them never left the country. And how can you know anything about anything until you've seen all of the beautiful things that are out there, and seeing all the crazy things, and seeing these cultures, and seeing everything? And I embrace that. I love being cultured now. I love being able to know what like croissant tastes like in France. I love those things because it gives you a different perspective than
it tastes pretty good, by the way.
They do taste real good. A little chocolate in there. It's
good. They taste pretty good, by the way. I agree with you on that. Estonia, what was the thing in Estonia? The biggest thing in Holland I remember is fries and mayonnaise.
Yes, I remember the fries and
fries and mayonnaise.
Was like, I remember like in Kosovo, it was like Burek, or I don't even really know how to pronounce it. But it's like this pastry with like meat inside. Like there was like sausage. There was like other different. And it was like that you could cut it up. I love that. It was like flaky and stuff. That was my go-to. Australia just had like a lot of A lot of seafood. I remember I liked that a lot.
Oh, yeah, because
And
you were by the ocean. Yeah, yeah, that
yeah,
makes sense. Yeah,
Estonia, I remember going to the grocery store and just I would get like pre-done meals because I was by myself. I'm just
of course, of
rolling
course,
in
of
there.
course, of
So
course.
I'm just going and getting like the chicken or whatever. It tastes a little different, but like a big thing of chicken and like sides and stuff. It was and just going to the grocery store and getting that and bringing it home. Like I remember doing that all the time. It was like
uh,
I would hit that grocery store like right outside of town. It was like right here, and then I would just shoot straight back to
oh
the
yeah, the
apartment.
big
It was
because it was
awesome.
yeah, no, no, I got you. It was the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I
Yep.
remember. No, I would just get the fish and chicken, fish and rice.
Uh-huh.
Like they had like the bag, boiled in the bag rice,
Yes,
and
yes.
the fish, and all I got to do is put that in the skillet, put that in the thing. That was it. I just remember they had like a TGIF Fridays,
Uh-huh.
like something like Americanized food, and that we ate
Yes.
there like literally all the time.
Yeah.
That's where I brought everybody. The team would come, like we would just eat there all
Uh-huh.
the time.
I loved it. And
No,
I
no, I loved
loved
it.
like Talon was so unique too with like the walls all around. I love like the because you had the it was like you had the Scandinavian feel because it was right by Finland. You had that like Russian feel because the cold, like just like the people, and then you had that European feel because you had that wall, you had the castle, like you had that old fashioned, that big square. I remember I would just sit out there. Like there was days when I was like would sit out there and I would just like chill and just people watch for just hours because I was like, what am I going to do in my apartment? I was like, I would get done practice. I would go get something to eat at like one of those places and I would just sit there and just watch people for like hours. I'd be like, this is awesome. This
No,
is
no,
unique.
definitely, man. Like, no, yeah. Estonia was cool. It's cool. And like I
Yeah.
said, everybody drunk vodka, like it was
Oh,
juice.
everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody vodka and Red Bull, which is hilarious.
Yes.
Vodka's smooth, Red Bulls amp you up, and you're drinking that all night, and you're kind of like, like
Yeah.
it's yeah, they keep it
Just
going.
like a
Like
roller
a roller
coaster of
coaster.
love.
No, I agree. But man, Kevin, man, I want to say thank you so much, man, for coming on the show, brother. Man, I really appreciate it. I think your story, your journey is something that people needs to hear, especially athletes who have been through it and need like that transition to see, like, look, I did overseas, I did the G League, and I'm good. Like we really, really, really need to hear stuff like your story, man. It's greatly appreciated. Trust me, it's super greatly appreciated. I appreciate it because I was like, reading your Wikipedia or whatever. Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that. All right, all right. You know what I'm saying? So I got
it was like real quick, like it was a funny story. Like my friends, all my friends from home, like they just they never cared that I was a professional basketball player. Like if I was hanging out with them, they're like you were just they would make fun of everyone, so they didn't care. Like put my humility in check real quick. And I guess like Wikipedia when I was in Australia, someone created a Wikipedia page for
yeah,
me.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
remember that's when like I didn't even know what Wikipedia was. My friend was like, "You have a Wikipedia page." I was like, "I don't even know what that is." And back then, you could like edit it real quick. And all my friends one day just went in and completely like made this huge Wikipedia page, like edited everything, and it was just all these weird stories from when I was a kid and like high school. Like they made stuff up. I was like, "This is ridiculous," and I like remember that we laughed forever. But that was like my little Wikipedia page. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate this forum where athletes and we can kind of share these stories. I appreciate what you do with the book club. Your book is on its way, but it is fun. Like I feel like having there's this community of overseas athletes, and we've all experienced the same thing. It's like an instant
Mhm.
bonding thing. Like you can
Yes,
go
yeah.
and just all of a sudden meet someone and you'll be like, oh, you played overseas, and you can hang out with the rest of the night and just be like, boom, boom. Oh my God, yeah, I had that same thing happen to me. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
when you look at it, it's I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on. This is a lot of fun.
No, no problem. No problem. Like I said, I appreciate it. Last question for you.
Yes.
Pretty much at one point of everybody's career,
Hmm.
we all go through our ups and downs. We could be
Hmm.
overseas, we could be in the States. At your lowest point, how did you get out? Did you get out by yourself or did you get out with help? How did you get out of your lowest point?
That's a great question because I was in Kosovo and my knee was like all messed up. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't really do anything. I was like, is this it? Like, am I done? I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I was in Kosovo, which was dark. I didn't really know anyone. Uh, I was alone. My apartment was small. The power used to go out all the time. If you didn't shower before 9 a.m. or 10 or 9 p.m. or 10 p.m., they shut the water off throughout the whole entire city of Pristina. We were in the capital city. I
Oh
remember being
wow.
like, where am I? And I remember, like, I was like, started drinking a lot because
Mm-hmm.
there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing else. And I was like, come home and be like, you just had this like depression, like this depression. So I was like, you almost like wanted to get it out of your mind. So I would just like go and have like 2 beers, and then I just was like, there was a time when I just like was like drinking all night, and I remember kind of it was hard. Like I was like, this sucks. Like this is a terrible situation. I remember looking at myself and being like, like what are you doing? Like this, you have a job to do. You're getting paid to do a job, and you're sitting here like it's the morning, and you've been drinking all night. And we didn't have a game or like anything. I think we had a day off the next day. But I remember just like going to sleep and kind of being like, let's get this together. Like we're not doing this another night. So I started reading more. I started doing, watching. I would go out and like watch soccer, not even a bar, like at a restaurant, and just go and just try to get out of the house. So once I started doing that, that's when my traveling embraced. And I just pulled myself out of it because I knew where it was going to lead, and it would probably be the end of my career. And I was like, you know what? Let's pick this up. And I remember just trying to get out of the house as much as possible, trying to hang out with people. I used to walk around, like just go and explore because I just didn't want to be by myself, which is, I think in Estonia it was the same thing. I was like, let's just get out of the house. Like I'm not sitting here and doing nothing all day. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
once I just started getting into that funk, that's when the depression started. But I was
Yeah.
at that point, I felt like I pulled myself out and I knew kind of how to handle it. I just knew how to handle being alone. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a tough thing. But I definitely pulled myself out. It was tough.
No, no, that's a good thing, man. I tell you, Estonia was like cool, but like I said, they had those days where it'd be like a blizzard outside, and I would look outside and be like, it was weird. I remember one time in particular, it was like blizzard, like it was negative outside, super cold. It was like uh Saturday night, I didn't go out, because I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm not driving in this blizzard to the club. And I was like, man, like I thought to myself, what am I doing here, dude? Like, and
Yep.
at that time I was, happy, whatever the case is, making all the money, but miserable at the same time, like lonely, like just bugging out and just like, yeah. So I understand what you're
Yep.
talking about. I
It's
understand what you're going through, or what
it's
you went
rough.
through. Yeah, no, definitely.
It's rough. And you
Definitely.
gotta, and I feel like I still have that, not PTSD, but I'm, maybe it's made me stronger, but now when you're, home and your family's all around and all the kids are running around and stuff. And I feel like there's this part of me that sometimes I'm just like, I need a second. Like I need to be alone because you've got used to
Yeah. Yeah.
surviving and being alone. And you,
Mhm.
you, you realize that you can be with yourself and enjoy yourself's company. And I learned that. And then, now you have a family around all the time. And now everyone's like, dad, Kevin. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, give me a second. Like, bring me back to Estonia for, 2 days. Like, I just need to get away.
No, I hear you on that. I definitely hear you on that. Well, like I said, Kevin, man, I appreciate you, man. Please let the world know how to find you, where your book is. Please let everybody know.
Of course. So the book is called Overseas Famous. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Uh, and as far as me, I'm on social media. I'm like not good at social media yet. I posted a TikTok just because someone like my media person was like, you need to post a TikTok. So I made up a TikTok, and all these people were like writing me, and they're like, oh, you should post another one. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but uh, like TikTok, it's Overseas Famous. You can find me on Instagram at Overseas Famous. My personal account on Instagram is Knockout 2515. I also get confused with the wrestler a lot. So, there's a lot of weird, angry messages that I get in my DMs like, you fat piece of shit. And I'm like, whoa. I was like, are you talking about me? And then I'm like, oh, like you can't beat Seth Rollins. I was like, oh, I see where you're going. Okay,
Oh,
cool.
okay. Yeah. I got you. Respect. Well, like I said, Kevin, I appreciate you. You can live, like I said, going back to the beginning, you can find me at Travis W. Reed. That's REED on Instagram, Travis W. Reed. On Facebook as well, Travis W. Reed. I post all my social media content and all that stuff on those two pages. I also have a TikTok, but I just, like which is Travis. I want to say Travis Reed, but I think it's Travis W. I have to double check it. So I don't. All I post is just everything I post on, my other platforms. So, and maybe you might get one other thing for TikTok, but pretty much the same thing. If you're interested, like I said, like I'll probably put his book on my book club too, where once I read it, it's all gonna be on the list. You can find me on LinkedIn, Travis Reed. Like I said, if you want to find my book club, it's Travis Reed's book club on LinkedIn as well. Yeah, like I said, this episode will be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as well. So be on the lookout for all those platforms, and the Believe Network, and it'll also be on that too. So, like I said, thank y'all for listening. See y'all next week. Peace.